So today we are going to be talking about 6 ways to make money while you are buying property at the time of buying a property. So hello again, my name is Amit. I'm your professional buyer's agent, and I help you build self-sustainable property portfolios, targeting short-term rapid growth without compromising on long-term growth on the basis of data and research. Okay, so let's jump right into it. Number one way of making money when buying a property is by buying it below market value. Now, I know a lot of people think, is it even possible to do that? And especially in the market conditions that we are seeing today, where there is historical low stock levels, there is high buyer activity, high demand in good areas, obviously. Is it even possible to buy something below market? Yes, 100% it is. There's a certain methodology and there's a certain systematic approach that goes into it. We do it pretty much every week with most of our purchases. What you need to understand there is that a property which is advertised at a certain price may not be its market value. There might be comparables which are actually selling at a higher price or even a lower price. So you have to really understand the value of the comparables. And when I talk about comparables, it does not mean a comparable property which has a similar land size and similar number of rooms. No, there's hundreds of different elements and characteristics that goes into valuing a property up to the closest best possible measure. And it might be, the quality of the fittings and fixtures, the age of the property, whether it has been renovated recently or not, what sort of repairs it might demand in the short-term future. It might also be the cosmetic elements of a property which might influence on the value. Obviously, the things that look pretty, they have a higher desirability, they have a higher liking from the buyers, but that is one thing which you have to avoid. You're not paying for cosmetic beauty. And to be honest, you shouldn't be really getting affected by cosmetic features of property as long as it is not an eyesore. And because buyers actually get into competition for something they really like, and you have to look for something which does not have as much buyer competition. It might just not look as pretty, but there might be a story behind it. There might be a story behind the sale, which you need to get to understand why this property is being sold. And then based on that information and based on your rapport with the selling agent, you can actually buy something at a price which might normally sell at a better price in the market, and the properties comparable to that one might sell at a better price. So yes, it is possible to buy below market. It's not very common. It's not something that can easily be done, but it can certainly be done with the right approach. Number two thing, learn to value properties. So how do I put it? Okay. Completely ignore the price guide that you see advertised on the internet. Completely ignore what the real estate agent, the selling agent is telling you in terms of the price. Completely ignore the online valuations, the bank's valuations, the online freely available tools which value property. Their data is not only outdated, but it also does not take into consideration the certain elements which are required to value a property in an effective way. For example, there might be a property selling on the same street worth $500,000, and at the same time there might be another one selling for $400,000. Now, can a bank's system or the online valuation tools actually understand why one would sell for $400,000 in the same area on the same street while the other is selling for $500,000? A selling agent who has seen a property on that street selling for $500,000 will list the other property at either the equal price of $500,000 or a slightly better price, but it may not still be valued at the same price when you actually look in. So if you learn to value the actual market value of a property as compared to the truly comparable properties, then you'll be able to also work out what is the right price to pay for it. A property might be advertised for $500,000, but it may end up selling at $550,000. It does not really mean the actual value of the property might be $550,000 because a buyer might have just gotten emotional and paid extra for it. A lot of people also think that if they go by the advertised price guide and they are able to achieve a price towards the lower end of the price guide, then they have actually got a good deal. No, that's not true, because a property advertised between $500,000 to $550,000 might actually only be worth $470,000 or $480,000. So if you're still paying $500,000, $520,000 for that, you're not really getting a good deal. So the price guides are in no form or shape a measure of the real value of the property. So if you learn how to value a property based on the actual local market and the specific pocket in which that property is located, then you are easily able to understand what is the right price to pay for it. All right, so let's now move on to number 3. Target short-term rapid growth. Let me repeat that. Target short-term rapid growth when buying a property. And to be honest, long-term growth is no rocket science. And I keep saying this, and I'll still repeat myself that targeting or achieving long-term growth is no rocket science. You buy something reasonable anywhere in a metro city, maybe even regional centers, leave it for 15, 20 years, and it will give you growth. So there's no rocket science in that. The real skill is in learning how to target short-term rapid growth. And what I mean by that is something like 15 to 20% over a period of 12 to 24 months. That is what I consider to be short-term rapid growth. And there's a certain way to identify the areas where you can achieve that. It is primarily dependent on the analysis of demand and supply in a market. There's a lot of elements that goes into analyze that. So learn how to analyze demand and supply of a certain market. You can, I mean, there's a lot. I can do a whole new video on just that element, because there is so much that goes into that analysis. There is population growth, infrastructure projects, there is job creation, there is local economy, how strong that is and how reliable that is. There is building approvals to analyze the supply in next 1 to 2 years time. There is also activity of the properties on the market. For example, how many days they are taking to sell, how much vendor discounting is there, whether they are selling at the advertised price or at higher price or a lower price, how soon they are selling as compared to 12, 24 months ago, what is the number of stock coming on the market as compared to last 1 to 2 years. That gives you an idea of what sort of demand it has been having, and the supply pipeline gives you an idea of whether that supply will be able to fulfill that demand or not. If there is a huge gap, that is where you go for short-term rapid growth. All right, moving on to the 4th point. So the first one was buy below market. The second one was learn how to value the actual value of a property. The third one is target short-term rapid growth. And the 4th one is buy positively geared properties. And let me make one thing very clear. There's a difference in positive geared and positive cash flow. So learn the difference between positive gearing and positive cash flow. These are two different things, two different ways to achieve that. Sorry, various different ways to achieve these two different things. And again, it's a big topic. I can do a totally separate video on that at a later stage. So target positively geared properties, and why we do that is that when you do target positively geared properties, you are actually preserving your borrowing and servicing for future purchases. Not 100%, but up to a large extent, you're actually preserving your borrowing. You're not compromising on the serviceability for future purchases. You're not compromising on the borrowing capacity for future purchases. And just imagine if you couple this up with short-term rapid growth, which was our previous point. Just imagine a 20% growth on a $500,000 purchase is about $100,000 in equity. And if you're able to achieve that in 1 to 2 years' time, and you haven't compromised your borrowing and serviceability, then as soon as you're able to achieve that, you're actually sort of ready for your next purchase. So positive gearing is important to it. Okay, moving on to the fifth point. No matter how good we are at analyzing the possibilities of future growth and the market conditions, there will always be something which you cannot be prepared for, which you're not able to see today. And the most recent example was COVID-19. No one knew something like that might just happen. And I'm not saying things like things like COVID happen every now and then, no, but there are other elements. There might be foreign elements which may influence the local markets. There might be interstate, national issues that might influence local markets. So if your property does not perform the way you expected it to be in the time frame you expected it to be, having a value add potential in the property helps you keep moving on your plan within your time frames. So having value add potential in your purchase is our fifth way of making money while purchasing, because that one element will help you have control on the circumstances where things don't go as planned. And what I mean by that value add potential is that there should be an element in your purchase from day one, which you can execute at your own will, which will help you force equity on your purchase when the time comes, when it is needed. It is also known as manufacturing equity into the property. It might be as simple as a cosmetic renovation, a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 cosmetic improvement to the property, which might improve the value by $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 overnight. That gives you equity when the market has not performed, which you can then again use to further your plans in the manner you had planned for them. It might also be a little bigger. For example, there might be a potential in your purchase where you can just put a secondary dwelling, obviously subject to approvals and all that. This due diligence has to be done beforehand, before buying something, whether this can be done in the future or not. If you're able to put a second dwelling on the property, you are able to, number one, increase your rental income straight away. Number two, enormously, you'll be able to increase the equity in the property, and you'll be from one property without having to pay for two. Plus, by paying for one new build, you are able to then own two properties at a much lesser outlay and obtaining a much higher return from it. One tip there, just adding a dwelling on a property does not mean you have to go through the subdivision process. Subdivision process is for executing different titles for both properties. If you are not selling either of those, you don't need different titles. They can coexist on one title, saving you more money over there. Also saving you costs in establishing the second dwelling. So another huge topic which can be covered in its own rights at a later stage. Okay, now the sixth point and the last one is learn to negotiate around terms and conditions in a manner that they actually save you money or protect you from extra expenses which might be just unforeseen at this stage. So a lot of people, when it comes to negotiation, most people just do not think beyond the price. The terms and conditions actually form a large part of the negotiation process, where we are trying to put in smart conditions, which not only protect us from certain things in the future while executing the whole purchase process, but they also save us money in certain scenarios. For example, a lot of people are happy with the point where the sale contract says vacant possession. A vacant possession is fine, but still, in a lot of cases, people leave behind their personal belongings, their furniture, some junk in the house, and depending on the amount of stuff that is left behind, you could be paying up a lot to get that all cleaned. And it happens time to time. It might be a cost from a couple of $1,000s to several $1,000s, depending on what condition they have left. And that is why it is important at the time of making the sale contract that a condition something to the effect of all personal belongings, junk, and furniture must be removed before settlement. Something like that can be put into a contract. We do that as a normal practice in our purchases. Things like all appliances must be in working order. It must be put into the contract, because a couple of appliances not working after the settlement can cost you a few $1,000s again to fix that, not to mention the downtime in order to get that fixed before the tenants or before you move into the property. Things like access to the property. If you are buying it for investment and you have to lease it out, access to the property for the purpose of photographs, for leasing it, appointing a property manager, and advertising it into the market. And what that does is, if you get that permission and if you get that access without discomforting the vendors or the people living there, then you can at least start the process of leasing out the property, putting it on the market, screening the tenants, working with the property manager to secure a tenant by the time your property actually settles. This will enormously reduce your downtime after the settlement to run the process of putting it on the market and leasing and all those things. Apart from this, something like that, something like to the effect of reasonable access to the property where something has been discovered which need to be fixed in order for it to be functional for leasing out. There might be a small repair, there might be a small installation or something. You should be able to put these conditions in your contract that enables you to do all this before the property actually settles, so that it is ready for tenants to move in as soon as the settlement takes place. We do it for most of our purchases, investment purchases for the clients. And I highly recommend that these kind of conditions and other similar conditions, depending on the purchase scenario, should be put into the contract. So I'll just run through them once again. Buy below market value, make you money at the time of purchase. Learn how to value a property in a true sense, not going by the online guides or valuations or even sales guides. Target short-term rapid growth. That's a big one, because that enables you to move on to your plans in a quicker manner. Positively geared properties. They will help you grow your portfolio. So that is really, really important. Value add potential. When the market does not perform, this is another big one. It lets you do what you wanted to do just by simply forcing some equity on the property and utilizing it for future plans. And then smart conditions. negotiate around terms and conditions, put some smart conditions. It will be highly dependent on what kind of property you're looking at and what does the purchase involve, what your plans are with that. But work with your team, work with a professional to figure out what is needed there. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. I'll see you again.